All right, these are the instructions for chronological thinking for Unit 2. Today we are going to deal with the years 1764 to 1775, looking at the buildup of towards American independence and the American Revolutionary War. Remember, whenever we're doing any of these activities, we always want to keep the statement of inquiry for Unit 2 at the front of our thoughts. And so the statement of inquiry for Unit 2, when there is a perception of an imbalance of equity, a revolution in government is needed to change it. So whenever people perceive that things appear to be not equal or unfair, typically a change is going to be demanded or needed to address that perceived imbalance of equality. So today, the historical thinking skill that we're going to really focus on is chronological thinking. So what is chronological thinking? Chronological thinking is the ability to examine relationships among historical events. So when you're looking at these events from 1764 to 1775, you want to be able to uh, detect and to pull out some basic patterns here that all these historical events share. You also want to be able to explain how certain events can bring about or cause other historical events. This is known as historical causality. All right. Oops. All right, so what are we hoping to accomplish here today? We want to be able to create timelines to record events according to the order in which they occurred, and to reconstruct patterns of historical succession and historical duration. So these are some pretty big some phrases that you might not have heard before. So what are patterns of historical succession? Patterns of historical succession are it's just the process in which events unfolded. Um, and you're going to be doing this by putting those events from 1764 to 1775 in order. The more difficult thinking skill that we're going to use with these timelines are to be able to detect patterns of historical duration. And this is a time which historical developments exhibit reliable or consistent, excuse me, samples of traits or tendencies. And so when you're looking at this completed timeline, you want to be able to pull out some examples of how either the colonists or the British exhibit reliable traits or tendencies in how they act or how they react to certain events. So what are we going to do? We're going to record key events of 1764 to 1775 regarding the build-up to American independence. We want to identify specific actions and reactions of both the British and the Americans. You can find this in your textbook from page 86 all the way through page 97, I believe. You want to be able to identify, all right, we already said that. You want to be able to answer some questions to check for understanding. This will come at the very end. These questions to check for understanding is something that you will be turning in. And then after you're done, you definitely want to start brainstorming potential songs for your soundtrack of a revolution. This is a classwork assignment that's going to be worth 20 points of your test grade. This assignment can be found on my blog. Or the choice that you have, if you don't want to do a soundtrack of a revolution, you can start brainstorming some ideas for your artwork of a revolution. And once again, this assignment, the instructions, and the rubric are found on my blog. And then definitely at the very end, if you have time, you want to start brainstorming for the crash course history project that you're going to use or do, the pamphlet that you're going to create, or the children's book assignment that you're going to create. Those last three assignments, you have a choice to do one of those, and they are worth 40 points of your test grade. All right, so these are notes that you have to do. You have to record on a separate sheet of paper. You might have some room on your timeline that you can also record these notes. So the question here that we want to look at is, why are tensions on the rise between the colonies and Great Britain? We haven't declared independence at the end of this timeline. The Revolutionary War has not necessarily started at the end of this timeline, but tensions are definitely on the rise. So why? What are some causes to the rise in tensions between the colonies and Great Britain? And then we also want to be able to trace the escalation of tensions between the colonies and Great Britain. So To start us off, to give us some background here, there's definitely a change in Britain's policy towards the colonies after 1763. In other words, there's a change in Great Britain's policy towards the colonies after the French and Indian War. There's no more salutary neglect. The British are no longer going to let the colonies do and decide whatever they want as long as they stay loyal to Great Britain. Now, why do we see a change in Britain's policy? Why did we see them after 1763 decide to end or stop salutary neglect? Well, I think that the most important reason as to why they do it would be item number 2 there. They are in a financial crisis as a result of the French and Indian War. Their debt has doubled. All right, so they have to start gaining back some money to pay off that debt, and this will come in the form of taxes. What are some other examples that will lead to the rise of tension between the British and the colonies? The Proclamation of 1763. This halts colonial expansion into the Ohio Valley. This was due to Pontiac's Rebellion. The writs of assistance. These are one of the questions from the quiz that you guys are taking. The writs of assistance started in 1760 during the French and Indian War, and these are just general search warrants. They are going to allow the British officials to search any colonial ship or building they believe to be holding smuggled goods. The big problem here is that a lot of the colonial merchants work out of their homes, and so the writs of assistance allow them to British officials to search for ships. But these buildings, a lot of these buildings could be the merchant's actual household. So now you have British officials being allowed to search the homes of the colonists, and this is going to infringe on their liberties. And then last but not least, Britain's decision to keep 10,000 troops in the territory won from the war. The colonists saw this as a standing army that might turn against them if they being the colonists, exercise too much liberty. Hint, they will turn against them. So, now that you have this historical context, you know some background here, you've taken these notes, you know what we're going to do, we know what we're trying to get accomplished, you want to use page 86 through 97 to complete this timeline. How do you get this information? What information are you expected to record on this timeline? It comes on the back of this sheet, and it looks like this. All right, and for each year, you want to talk about the British action. You want to be able to describe the British action. So the Sugar Act, what is the Sugar Act? The Townshend Acts, what are the Townshend Acts? So you want to be able to say, here's what the British did in this year, and here's a short description of that act. And you want to be able to identify how the colonies react to the British action. Now, something to note, that none of these are in order. So this is not in chronological order. You will have to use the textbook to find out the years in which these events happen and put them in chronological order. So once you are finished doing that, now we can get down to what's really important, being able to look at and pull information out of our timelines. And so once you're done with the timeline, you want to answer the following questions in complete sentences and turn in to me. And so these are just 4 questions here. Most of them are opinion questions, but you have to show evidence of critical thinking. You have to support your claims with examples, and you have to show me evidence that you can use the timeline to be able to determine patterns of historical continuity. This is when, remember that if you're looking at a timeline, you're able to pull out consistent samples of traits or tendencies that are exhibited by the 2 groups. You want to be able to identify a key turning point in the relationship between Britain and her colonies. In the year 1763 to 1775, is there a certain year or a certain act by the British or by the colonists that changed the relationship? That changed the relationship in such a way that it could never go back to being the same. And so when you're identifying these key turning points, you want to say, here's the key turning point. And then you want to be able to explain what changed after this event and why did it change. And then the last one, being able to predict things, possible outcomes moving forward. So you're given the beginnings of this rise to eventual independence. And so now that we're here in 1775, is independence inevitable? Is there no turning back in 1775? Is it inevitable that the colonies are going to declare their independence from Great Britain just in the next year? If you believe so, all right, tell me why. Why is independence inevitable? If you think not, okay, what actions by either side could possibly be taken to avoid war or to avoid the colonies declaring their independence? Obviously, as you're working through this, I will be here to offer any levels of support that you might need and to make sure that you are finding some levels of success in accomplishing these historical thinking skills and being able to master the content of the build up to the American Revolution.